Welcome to the 1 Degree Podcast, where we talk about how small choices over time make a big impact. I'm Nick, a husband, father, and financial planner committed to being the best steward I can be with all that's been given to me, one small choice at a time. I love fixing things. Well, most things. There are definitely things I don't like fixing. Actually, we currently have a leak with our dishwasher. I'm really not excited about that one. But most things I really enjoy fixing because typically I can look at something and I can get like 80% of the way there in my head and then figure the last 20% out. And it's very satisfying. I especially love tinkering. I love working on, things that require screwdrivers. Actually, a really fun one from a couple weeks ago involved fixing a broken fan where the electromagnets had like come apart and I had to like put them back together. It was a really fun little project. That was fun. So yeah, broken toys, DIY projects for my wife. I actually fixed the brake vibrations on a minivan, replaced the brakes and rotors, which was a lot of fun. I've never done that before, so I was like, hey, go me. I was really proud. But I've noticed so this like Johnny Fix It style approach to many life problems has many wonderful applications. However, relationships is not one. And to avoid the cliche of the always wanting to fix the wife's problem husband archetype, I'll just suffice it to say I've certainly learned a lot in almost 11 years of wonderful, blissful, joyous, fabulous marriage to the love of my life. But I still have so very far to go. So it's unfortunately still my default, right? Like if the kids are fighting, if bedtime is taking a long time, even my wife downloading at the end of the day, I can still slip into like, oh, I can fix this real fast kind of approach to managing people. And I think that's part of honestly where my brokenness really comes out and comes to bear. It's an area I really pray and see God to still work in me. Because people aren't supposed to be managed or fixed like problems. Anyway, but this kind of leads to the second half of my thought, which is a fun story. So this came as I watched a pretty powerful exchange between my oldest child, my oldest daughter, and my wife. So this was a few weeks ago. We went on vacation. It was a great time. Sweet little baby moon before we become a family of 7. I know it's nuts. My kids had never played mini golf before. Okay, so if you remember the first time you played mini golf, I don't know what it is about it. It's such a fun. Maybe because my dad was into golf as a kid. Mini golf to me was sort of like, oh, this is my size. It's like fun size golf, like you're hitting it around rocks and stuff. It's just fun. I don't know. I always loved playing mini golf, and my kids did too. The problem was, I asked, who wants to play mini golf, and I believed them when 2 of them said they didn't. So I went to the clubhouse and got enough golf balls and clubs for 2 kids and me to play. Okay, that was mistake number 1. Should have just gotten 4 kid sets and maybe 1 for me. But truth is, like, I'm going to be helping them, not really playing myself. So dad fail. I learned my lesson. But the conflict then came because my oldest, she was like, she was good. She was having fun. It was first time she was playing, and she really didn't want to share her club and ball like at each hole. She wanted to like play the round and then share with the other kids. And so feelings kind of got escalated as she just continued to feel misunderstood, and she didn't want to do the way she wanted to play the way mom was telling her to play. And so the breakthrough kind of happened though when my wife in her grace and wisdom sat down beside her and took a really gentle approach. This is like the 3rd time they were trying to talk about it, but she took a really gentle approach. And instead of pushing for a fix or like pushing for compliance, she just slowed down and she listened. And she asked really curious questions. And she realized that part of the frustration was that our daughter was just feeling totally misunderstood. Like we weren't understanding how she was describing she wanted to play. And because of that, she felt like she had to keep re-explaining and doubling down on, no, this is what I'm trying to do. And that just generated a lot of frustration and anger in her. And all of that like melted away when my wife took an incredibly humble approach and said, hey, I think I've been doing more talking than listening. Do you feel maybe like mommy hasn't really taken the time to understand you? And in her little, 9-year-old anger, she kind of furrowed her brows and shook her head, yes. And so my wife said, why don't we start at the beginning? Tell me what happened from your perspective. that was like it was a really beautiful moment. It was a powerful moment to see. Um, it really just struck me. And I just kind of started thinking through and kind of connecting dots here of like humility and curiosity together will beget understanding. And I think the opposite is also true. But it takes a lot of humility to approach a situation where you clearly you think you already have all the information you need to have to make a pretty quick judgment of what's going on here and here's how we're going to fix this. But to have the humility to say, I don't know what I don't know. And just because I think I know all there is to know in this situation, and even if I'm right, honestly, even if I am right, I still want to slow down and humble myself to acknowledge that you're a person too. You have your own perspective, even if your perspective is, a 9-year old or a 7-year old or a five, perhaps even more so then, right? Like I haven't been 5 years old in a very long time. So help me understand from your point of view. And so, um, okay, continuing kind of this train of thought, the anger, because I walked away and I said, oh, well, of course, because everyone's angry until they feel understood. And I realized, okay, maybe that's not the right way to say it. It's not that everyone's angry. That's obviously not what I'm trying to say. But it's that if in a relational context you're feeling stress, frustration, anger, even hostility, or just like defeat, or just, whatever, never mind, just kind of that arms up, give up kind of response in a relationship, there's a good chance it's because you don't actually feel understood. And how good would it feel for that other person in the relationship to say, I think I've done more talking than listening. And I really want to hear it from your perspective and understand where you're coming from. So again, the reverse is also true, right? Because if we approach with that, like, this is a problem, I have the solution, hand me the screwdriver, I will fix you kind of approach to that, to conflict or tension, that only seems to escalate things. And suddenly now it like triggers that fight flight sort of like, okay, let's go, put up your dukes, like we're gonna hammer this thing out, you and me together, right? Like I'm gonna prove to you that I'm right, get ready. And that's really destructive to relationships, not constructive. And where I see this a lot is couples conversations around money. Even my conversations with my wife around money, it can pretty easily, it brings up emotion, brings up a lot of feelings. And if we don't slow down and listen and be curious, genuinely curious about the other person's point of view, it can really land us in a tough spot. And so anyway, it was really inspiring to me just to slow down and recognize how much humility and curiosity, even when you think you already know everything you need to know about the situation, can really foster really fertile ground for relational connection and just how powerful that can be. So, in the words of James, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? So be a lot more quick to hear than you are to speak, and be slow to anger and slow to make assumptions, right? Slow to draw conclusions. Be very curious and humble, right? Humble yourself first and be invitational in your conversation. Because anger is just that natural response to feeling misunderstood. And it's not a wrong feeling either. I used to think for a long time that anger was kind of a wrong feeling, but anger just says something's wrong that needs to be fixed, needs to be made right. And namely, it's the fact that the person who misunderstood you thinks they understood you. And you're like, no, you didn't listen to me. You need to hear me out on this. So if we kind of reverse engineer this again, like we can look for the relationships or the pockets in our relationships with different people where there are feelings of frustration or stress or anger or even defeat. Because where these feelings show up, there's probably just insufficient understanding. But if I'm willing to go there in my heart and in my mind and invite Jesus in and humble myself under his mighty hand, then I will find the rest and the reconnection that my soul is really longing for. If you haven't already, please consider leaving a delightfully refreshing review on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you have a question that you'd like to submit for an episode, then check out openhandedwealth.com/1degree and fill out the Ask Me Anything form. Your questions will come straight to yours truly, and I would absolutely love to dedicate some or all of an episode to answering them, assuming they're good. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure they'll be great. But if they're not good, I probably won't answer them, so make them good. All right, lastly, anything you've heard me discuss in this podcast is strictly educational. This is not specific advice, so don't just run out and apply this to your life right away, at least not the financial, potentially tax or legal part. So definitely consult with your experts on that before considering acting on anything you heard here. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions besides that. So thank you for listening, and have a great rest of the day.